This is Hannibal back here from the HannibalTV.com with another live stream. I wanted to review Shawn Michaels' appearance on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast this week, which is over an hour interview with Michaels. I recently also did a review of Shawn on the Ariel Helwani show, and it had good feedback, so I thought I would do this one too. And also, I do usually watch Logan's podcast on YouTube because his and Joe Rogan's are the two that I actually follow the closest, to be honest, because they're the two most popular. So let me get it. One thing I want to add about all these interviews is, why does no one ever ask him about Marty Jannetty? Like, is that a subject? I'd like to know what Shawn has to say about Marty. Because it really seems like, I know Marty had personal demons too, just like Shawn had. But it seems like Marty, who was a big part of the beginning of Shawn's career, he never gets brought up. He's not even in the Hall of Fame, and Shawn's been in twice. But as Marty said, they'll want to put Shawn in third time as the Rockers eventually. So then they'll put Marty in. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to digress there. But basically, I guess Shawn mentioned, and Logan, that Shawn has been training Logan in the Performance Center. This podcast was actually recorded in the Performance Center. So it's interesting. WWE, as we all know, is not the most cool product these days. There's a lot of very corny characters. The last boom in coolness was really the Attitude Era. John Cena was popular for a while there in the early 2000s. He still is. But Roman Reigns never reached the popularity of John Cena. So since about 99, it's just been going down in popularity. So it's a smart move on WWE's part by hiring Logan Paul, who's extremely popular, and bringing the podcast to the Performance Center, because by them doing the podcast at the Performance Center, it makes WWE seem cool again to the people that like follow Logan, which is a new audience. Most people watching wrestling, from what I understand from the figures, it's people my age and older. It's like people 35 to like 60 something that liked it when it was popular and are still hanging on to it. There's not as many younger viewers as there used to be. So it's good that they're bringing him in for that. And then The Rock's daughter is also going to add a coolness factor, because The Rock's a massive star right now, and now his daughter is in NXT. And by the way, here's another interesting part. Rocky Johnson told a story about an altercation that The Rock had with Shawn Michaels back when The Rock was just starting and Shawn was still having his attitude issues. And Shawn in this mentioned that he had been training The Rock's daughter, who, by the way, I did a review of her first appearance on NXT a couple hours ago, when I do think she has potential, even though she's with a corny group. But anyways, Shawn denied ever having any personal issues with The Rock's daughter, with The Rock, and kind of downplayed any interactions that they ever had, basically saying they didn't cross paths too much. So I found that interesting, because that calls into, basically, he's either trying to ignore the story that Rocky Johnson said, or Rocky was lying. We'll see. He also said when he started working for NXT, he was planning to work 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, Monday to Wednesday, and now he's working 80 hours a week. And we recently had the biggest whiner poll last week on this channel. Over 2,000 people voted in a day, less than a day actually. CM Punk was number one Bret Hart was number 2. Cornette was number 3. And one of the names that was thrown around that should have been added was Shawn Michaels. But I have to say, watching this and seeing the other recent interviews with Shawn Michaels, he's not whining about anything anymore. Whereas like the Bret Harts and CM Punks are still whining, even though they have nothing to whine about. They're multi-millionaires. But Shawn Michaels, like, even though I don't necessarily like NXT or find it entertaining, he seems to be very passionate about training these kids, and he is the executive or senior vice president of talent development and creative at WWE. So he is a suit, he is corporate, and he seems to be like very passionate about this. So I definitely wouldn't, for the people that said the Shawn Michaels would be one of the biggest whiners. I don't see him whining at all in this interview. He says he doesn't go to church anymore because the people at church don't like him because they still see him on TV doing the DX suck it chant or the suck it signs and stuff. So he worships God in his own way with his own. He tried to start talking about his ritual, but there's 2 guys on Logan Paul's podcast, 2 co-hosts. I don't remember either of their names, even though I've watched probably 30 episodes now. The one guy is an ex-drug addict, so he brings that up almost every podcast. And the other guy is like a very religious guy, and he brings that up every podcast. And when Shawn started talking about his worshiping routine, the other guy cut him off and asked him, did he have faith in the days when he was having the personal issues, including being a self-admitted egomaniac? So yeah, we never got the full answer on that. And then for the addiction, the guy that had the addiction, he was asking Shawn how he overcame the addictions, and it was a long process. But that was another question he never fully answered. They kind of got off topic on both of those questions. As far as the partying lifestyle, it was interesting, and this is true because even when I started to break in, and maybe it was just because I hung around a lot of old wrestlers, Shawn talked about, like, in the older days of wrestling. And this is why, for the people that said Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would have made it in any generation, they wouldn't have, because they could have never hung with these guys. And I'm not saying that this is good, because a lot of these wrestlers died, but they just wouldn't have made it ever in these generations, because Shawn was talking about, and a lot of the wrestlers wouldn't, because you had to be partying all night. That was part of the culture. If you didn't party all night and cheat on your wife and do all this terrible stuff, it's like you weren't considered one of the boys. You'd be an outcast. So Shawn was like talking about now it's a chore for him to go down and drink after a hard day's work. Like, he doesn't want to do that. But he was talking about how in the old days it was like that. You had to be a bit of a party, or at least stay out and prove that, like, that was a definition of a man, that you could do all this crazy shit every night of the week when you're on the road. It was just part of the culture. And yeah, I mean, I've had some of that too, and yes, I've done some of that stuff too, and like, it's not good for you in the long run. I will agree with him on that. I'm glad that he got out of it. I'm not sure if Marty's fully out of it. Haven't seen him for a while yet. What else did he talk about? Oh yeah, this was another thing though. I didn't agree with him on this. He said, for the old timers that don't like today's style, saying we didn't do that in my day, end quote. He said, Shawn said, quote, it wasn't as good. and there is continued advancements in wrestling. So that's Shawn's opinion, that when wrestlers from the past don't like today's product, well, the past wasn't as good. To me, it was more popular in the past. I mean, yes, they can still pull out good crowds for WrestleManias, but they're not running 2 and 3 towns a night, 7 days a week anymore. They're making more revenue than ever in WWE, but there's less wrestling jobs than ever because all the territories folded. Wrestling's not as popular as it used to be. I hate to say this, you can walk back when Hogan was the champion, everyone knew Hogan was the champion. Now, most people could not tell you who the WWE champion is. It's just not as popular. Of course, Shawn is training the new generation, so of course he's going to say the old wrestling wasn't as good. But they also went into talking about, and this is on the same topic, Logan brought up that wrestling used to be a wrestling show that was televised, and now WWE sees the product as a TV show that does wrestling. So I liked it better when it was like wrestling, because they try to have these wrestlers do comedy and acting, and overall they're not good at it. And I think they just want to be Hollywood and want to be corporate and want to be a TV show that does wrestling, but no one's watching it that's not fans of wrestling. I'm sorry, but whatever. That was about it. But overall, it was interesting. He doesn't do anything in the ring when he's training people. He has someone come in and he tells them what to do when he's training with someone like Logan Paul. So that was about it. I'll answer some questions. Michael, I'm doing great. Clint says, I think if they played the Bloodline storyline, if they brought out Jacob Fatu, from what I understand, Jacob Fatu has issues traveling internationally, which is the reason why WWE never picked him up, because we all know MLW has like one show a month and pays shit. So, I mean, AEW travels internationally hardly ever. They just had their first show out of the US in Toronto. So he might be able to go there, but I know WWE, they don't want to hire people. I mean, he is part of the Samoan dynasty, so maybe they would make an exception. And depending on how serious the issue is, somehow Jeff Hardy could still get into Canada, I think, for WWE, even though without WWE, he was not able to get into Canada. So I don't know what his issue is, but like I know they have problems with some people that can't do all the tours because it screws up the storyline. You can't use people that can only wrestle in one country when they're a worldwide entity. Clint talking about The Rock. Ivan Santos, yes, Logan Paul does live in Puerto Rico. That's pretty cool. Most beautiful, some of the most beautiful women in the world are Puerto Rican. And yeah, what about brings up that, yeah, you would get a bad rep if you didn't do all that crap. And like, I was thinking when he was talking about that, I've literally, like, I'm ashamed to say, like, I'm not even going to say it, but yeah, like that's stuff that, like, in the wrestling business, when you're younger, you're taught that it's cool to like be with a lot of girls and so forth, and like in reality, that really doesn't make you a good person. But for some reason, the wrestling business had this weird thing that if you weren't like a bad person, you didn't belong in the business. Being a bad person was cool in the wrestling business. Yeah, Marty likes to party. Yes, Shawn had a wild lifestyle. They also talked about the incident with the 6 Marines or however many it was briefly, but Shawn kind of said he didn't remember any of it because he was hammered. And he said that wasn't the only time that he woke up in the hospital and realized, okay, I must have been drunk and got in a fight. Mannequin 2000 says yes. There's no A and B shows in one day anymore with WWE, and yeah, there's. I don't even think most weeks they don't even do 4 shows a week for each brand anymore. A lot, and sometimes they don't even have a house show. It's picking up a bit more now, but like for a while there was like 4 SmackDown shows a week and 4 Raw shows a week. Then it's like now it's like 1 or 2 house shows, sometimes 3, but it seems like the schedule is a lot easier. And the reason for that is it's supply and demand. I think I brought it up the other day. They go to the small arena now in Montreal for house shows and the small arena in Toronto for house shows. They used to come to the big arena in Montreal and Toronto every single month, sometimes twice a month in Toronto, and pack the place. So there's just not, and not only would they would go to Toronto, but they would do all the little towns around Toronto, all the smaller towns like Barrie, Kinks. They still do Kingston sometimes, but Guelph they would go to. Markham they've been to. London, Newmarket. They've been to like there's so many. I can't remember the one they used to do all their TV tapings at, but like they're just in the Toronto area alone. They would have Oshawa. They haven't been to Oshawa in years, and they used to go to Oshawa like regular. Sudbury, Ontario, Thunder Bay. They don't go to so many places anymore, and it's just because the demand isn't there, and they don't make money at it. So yes, as far as it's better for the wrestlers that have WWE jobs because they make more money than ever. They work less, and the company is making a lot of revenue, but there's less wrestling jobs overall. So, whatever. Mike says Bob Cook for the WWE Hall of Fame. Last I heard from Bob Cook, he had a lot of damage in that Florida territory or the Florida hurricane. I don't know if he has power or not. I have not wrestled in South Dakota. I think I've driven through North Dakota. But that's about it. Whichever one it is when you're driving from Calgary to Las Vegas. Hello, Lindsay. No, Shawn did not talk about Sunday. You see, I wish these people would do interviews with me. Everyone talks about this Ariel Hawani guy. Let me interview the guests that he has. I'll ask some of these questions. I mean, I won't just like pitter patter around everything. Kenzo, do I still go for midnight runs? I actually went for a run today. See, right now I have Piper pretty much full time, so that prevents me from running because I have to have her babysat when I go to the gym because she has separation anxiety. So if I leave her alone in the apartment, she will literally scream at the door for the entire time I'm gone. So that prevents me from like going on midnight runs. So what I'll do is I'll do cardio in the gym after my weights, or I'll just run. And I'll usually have my parents look after Piper. They only live 5 minutes away from me, and they appreciate her company. But on the nights that my ex takes Piper, yes, I do go for midnight runs sometimes. But I had a very bad experience on my last midnight run that I'm not going to get into. Title is spelled wrong. Okay, I'll fix it after. Clint Mantar. I am interviewing Mantar soon. What time is it? It is the same time as it is in Tennessee. I've driven to Tennessee. It's only about a 12-hour drive from here, I seem to recall. Anyways, have a great night. And yeah, it is a good interview. And by the way, I hope that Logan Paul beats Roman Reigns at that crown jewel. The whole stupid tribe thing, I don't know. To me, it's just, I don't know. I don't like whatever. I can't even remember what the group's called. Something tribe. But yeah, it's time for something new. I mean, it seems stale to me. Let's mix it up and put Logan Paul as champion. Roman Reigns has had it, and we haven't seen ratings go up. I mean, they've been pretty stagnant. So yeah, mix it up. Make Logan Paul the champion. I don't even know who the champion is on Raw, to be honest with you. I know that last I watched the highlights, I think it was Lashley and Lesnar were feuding or something. But that match would have been good right when Lashley came back. But now Lashley's been beat by McIntyre, who's not a real fighter. He's been beaten by a lot of guys. So to see Lashley and Lesnar clash now, when Lashley has been around and isn't fresh out of MMA anymore, it doesn't have the same spark. The bloodline, yeah. Yeah, the bloodline. Michael, yeah, well, I appreciate it. But I don't know if I'd ever do a midnight run in the US again, because I think I don't know if I ever told the story. When I was in Texas, I went for a midnight run and I was pulled over by the cops and held for 20 minutes for suspicious activity. And they actually called for backup and everything. And yeah, that was the last midnight run I went on in Texas. They don't appreciate it there. Arizona wasn't a big deal though. I really like Arizona, and I hope to be back there hopefully next year. Have a great night.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it.